us along on the ride. And yeah, like you said, it was a pretty eventful game for the Oilers in the first half. And yeah, there was that huge hit on Darnell Nurse in the second period that really turned things around for both teams. But for the Oilers, I just saw more of the same that we've been seeing in the current week here for the Oilers when it comes to trying to sit on a lead, and eventually it ends up biting them in the end.
Yeah, and I mean, they were in the win column, the Oilers, at least, right? This past week, they did get in the win column, and obviously Connor McDavid had a big week. We'll probably get to that at some point as well. But and thanks, Jim. I love the comments about my mustache, the compliments. I'm enjoying it this month. I appreciate it. But and hello, everyone. Jay Vines, of course, Jim, Jose, everyone. Welcome to the chat. This is the first time we're live on Oilers Digest as well. So shout out to everybody on Oilers Digest as well. And Matt, I guess we can get into the Leafs didn't start good. The Oilers started great, and I think we can get into the first goal of the game specifically. And it was a tough play for Morgan Riley, I think, and the Leafs defense in general. Obviously, Morgan Riley tipping the puck to Adam Henrique there, who put it in the net. And I don't even think he tried to shoot it. I think it just went off of his stick and in. It was pretty lucky. But the Oilers get off on the right foot. I thought the first 5 minutes was completely dominated by the Oilers in this game.
It was, yeah. You kind of saw the shades of the Mark Henry, Connor Brown line that you saw. The third line really, come out for the Oilers last year in the playoffs, and this year they haven't gotten off to the best start. But you saw shades of that from last year when Connor Brown chipped the puck off the glass up to Matthias Janmark, led to that 2-on-1, and it led to that pretty nice redirection by Adam Henrique over the shoulder of Anthony Stolarz.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a hardworking play, right? They made it happen, and Hakanpää and Riley have been a decent defense pairing for the one game that they've been tried out so far, but Hakanpää, especially at times tonight, looked not great. He looked not great. I'll leave it at that. But to move to the second goal, and we're going to break this down. We're going to get to Reaves in a second, guys. I know the chat is chomping at the bit to get to Reaves for sure, but the second goal is Bobby McMann. He had a huge night tonight, and this is another hardworking goal. And this is a thing. He was held out of the lineup earlier this season because they needed more from him. He wasn't playing the way that he did to end last season. And he comes into tonight's game. This is the best I've ever seen him play. Bobby McDavid, right, in this game. I don't know where he got this from, but no, he played a fantastic game. This is the best game I think I've ever seen Bobby McMann play. And let me know in the chat, guys, if you think that's true, yes or no. Let's see a yes or no in the chat. If you think this was Bobby McMann's best game. I think it was the best game of Bobby McMann's Leafs career so far. But again, hardworking play in on the forecheck, and he makes it happen. And Matt, I don't know what you saw on this play. A little bit of an Oilers defensive breakdown too. And, the Oilers defense is not as great as it was last year.
No, it really wasn't, with the departures of guys like Vinny Desharnais, Cody Ceci, as much as Oiler fans did not like Cody Ceci. I think he played a pretty stellar role on the Oilers, and you can really feel the loss. But yeah, it was just a play in the Oilers' corner with Kulak and Emberson just kind of, fumbling the puck in the corner. And of course, Connor McDavid gets his pocket picked and leads to, the play in front of Stuart Skinner there where, there's really no help for him on that 1-1 goal.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Connor McDavid there defensively. I thought he played great defensively. He played a great game overall. He wants to win in Toronto. We know that. That's a fact, right? He wants that badly. You can tell. And then the first shot at the end of the game of the Oilers with the Leafs celebrating on the ice is McDavid just marching to the dressing room. So, maybe we would have an Amazon documentary moment there if they have cameras in the room. But no, I thought he was pretty good defensively again tonight, at least. For McDavid, and then he gets on the board too. Defensive breakdown for the Leafs specifically wasn't really great on the PK. And then you know what? Let's skip to Ryan Reaves. Shall we skip to Ryan Reaves?
We should.
Okay.
Yeah. So everyone is waiting for this. Myself, yourself, and I think everyone in the Leafs and Oilers chats just waiting to get to this one. Lots of views on this. Lots of different views. Lots of the same views that I saw all over Twitter and social media, and even with the intermission panel on Hockey Night in Canada. So let's get right to it, Darius.
Let's get right to it. So I guess it was halfway through the second, right? And I honestly want your take on this in the screenshot I'm showing specifically here on my stream. And we'll get to it in a second because we have a donation from Blake Sim. We'll get to that in just a moment here. Blake Sim Good game. That hit was nasty. I almost threw up. I hope Nurse is okay. And what a goal by Mitch Marner. Next year, McDavid will come to Toronto. What do you feel? How do you feel about that, Matt? About McDavid coming to Toronto specifically?
Oh my goodness, I know lots of Leaf fans are sort of, trying to put that into the motion here. And I know that during the second period headlines for Hockey Night in Canada, Elliot Friedman did mention the salary cap going up to 97 million. So another
Yeah.
Leaf forward making more than 10 million. Who knows?
I know. I don't think they can afford it, but anything's possible with Mitch Marner's contract also being up. But um, I wanted your take on this, and thank you for the donation, Blake Sim. You've been very supportive of the channel. Appreciate it. And everybody in here, we see some familiar names in the chat right now. But yeah, we'll get to Reaves and his use in the lineup in a second. But Matt, I want your opinion because the screenshot, like I was saying, I'm showing on screen right now. Nurse's head is literally backwards. Like he looks like an owl. And it was not a good hit. From my point of view, it's not a good hit. I think a lot of people can agree with that, but I want your opinion on it because this is a point in the game because the Oilers ended up losing this game, obviously, in overtime. This is a point in the game that could have turned the game completely. The Oilers could have blown the doors off this game, and they didn't. But what did you think about the hit specifically? And obviously, Darnell Nurse didn't return to the game.
Yeah, because it was a shoulder to head hit. Darnell Nurse goes around the back of the net there on the breakout, and had his head down. Ryan Reaves catches him with his shoulder. I think, Reaves could have let up. I think there's a potential for a clean hit there, but shoulder to head. I didn't think it was like 100% dirty. Sure, shoulder to head. It was unfortunate that, Darnell Nurse was on the ice, half unconscious, right? But that's just the thing you get with Ryan Reaves. He's a tough dude. He is out there, giving 110% every shift. Well, Leaf fans might not agree with that, but Ryan.
Well, we'll
Reaves,
get into it.
but with just unfortunate hit all around there. No matter what your viewpoint is on it.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate play because you could kind of see him. I don't know if I have the angle here specifically. I guess this one, like if you're watching the broadcast, you could see him just trucking towards Darnell Nurse from the hard cam. And then they zoom into this corner shot, which I'm showing on stream right now. And he just, like, it's a high hit. I know he's a tall guy, but it's a high hit. Like, he hits him in the head. He hits him in the head. You could see it in the moment. Obviously, there's blood all over the ice. And I think Reaves, like John is saying, will be in the press box because he's going to get suspended. Like, he is going to get suspended. George Peros looks for every little reason to suspend any Leaf for any reason at any point in the season. This is a big reason, and it's going to be like 5+ games, I think, because of Reeves' suspension history, which I have not up on screen right now as well. Not a great history, really not a great history. And I mean, he's going to get suspended. This is tough for the Oilers too, because now they might be without Darnell Nurse. We don't actually know what's going to happen, but I don't know what your thoughts on Darnell Nurse is. I know Oilers fans have a love-hate relationship with him, but he could be out sometime now.
Yeah, there's actually a tweet from Kevin McCurdy on Oilers Twitter. He was reiterating the point on the Oilers 6:30 Ched radio broadcast. He said Darnell Nurse was up. He was joking around with the training staff during the intermission, so it might not be a long-term thing, but the Oilers may take precautions, with concussions, and just trying to keep Darnell Nurse safe for the time being. He might not be out. He might be in against Montreal on Monday night.
Yeah, and again, that's a game that the Oilers should win and could use him in because Montreal is not playing great. But it's good to know that, it wasn't anything. I mean, it looked serious, but the end result, if he was joking around, and obviously the cut looked pretty serious, but hopefully he's okay and he can get back into the lineup pretty quickly here. And again, the Oilers, for Leaf fans who don't know, and we'll get into the Oilers a little bit now, I guess, but their lineup kind of allowed for him to leave the game in a way because they run the 11-7. So they had an extra defenseman. So they went down to 6 defensemen instead of 5. So that was all right. But what are you seeing from the Oilers? Let's get into the Oilers a little bit, and then we'll touch on some more Leaf stuff because it was a big win. What are you seeing from the Oilers specifically this year? Because off to a rough start again. You can't fire the coach again. That's something that you absolutely can't do. And I like Kris Knoblauch. I think he's a good coach. But what are you... Yes, and thank you, Jim. Everyone hit the like. Let's get to 30 likes. That's our goal right now. And shout out to the 105 of you who are watching right now on Leafs Digest. And we got a few for the first stream ever on Oilers Digest. But a lot of people in the Oilers chat as well saying, Evan Bouchard, tough game, right? And
we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, we'll get to that too, because of course the last goal there, I think it was the Matthew Nyes goal, and not good. But the Oilers this season. What are you seeing from them, and how can they improve because it hasn't been great?
I'm just seeing, a lack of killer instinct. You've seen the past, I believe it's now been 4 games for the Oilers where they've had a third period lead and then the whole sitting on it, trying to play defense, to close out the game. It is not working whatsoever, and it ends up coming to bite them. Because again, Evan Bouchard, rough game tonight. He had a pretty decent game the last game of which was against the Nashville Predators, the 1,000 point game, but he's just been very inconsistent this season. And Darius, not just Evan Bouchard this season, but Stuart Skinner, just hasn't been up to the play that we've seen him capable of. Of course, in the Stanley Cup Final, had a pretty solid few games, but of course we can't keep going back to the Stanley Cup Final when it comes to a sample size for Stuart Skinner. His inconsistency alongside with Bouchard's is hurting the team in a massive way, because when it comes to goaltending, Stuart Skinner, who else are you going to rely on? Calvin Pickard, you can't rely on him. He's not a full-time starter. Olivier Rodrigue down in Bakersfield, again, it's a pretty big variable for the Oilers, especially when they're so-called cup contenders and they've have another question mark in between the pipes. That's a problem waiting for Edmonton, and I'm not too thrilled about it whatsoever.
No, and it is a problem. As Stuart Skinner hasn't been playing fantastic so far this season, especially. And I mean, he played good enough to get them to the Stanley Cup Final, so there is something that. But we're talking about this year, and he hasn't been great. And he was also, he's being talked about for Team Canada's goaltending as well. Canada's goaltending is in a real weird situation these days. I'm not sure who's going to play a goaltender for Canada. But Jim in the Leafs chat, Leafs Digest chat, brings up a good point. Matt, what do you think is the difference? And we'll get to Bouchard in a second, but what do you think is the difference from Hyman's points from last year to this year? Because obviously a significant drop. If you asked me, I would kind of expect that coming into this year because last year was insane. But what's the difference in his play, at least?
The difference in play, I mean, on the forecheck, he's still the same old Zach Hyman that we've come to expect. Absolute hound on the puck. But one might call him a power play merchant. I think that's pretty true for the most part, because the Oilers' historic power play, Hyman got a majority of his 50 goals last season. On the power play, he's the net front presence. But the Oilers' power play, you can even see it struggle tonight on that 5-minute power play from the Reaves hit. The Oilers, 5 minutes, only generated 2 shots on that. So the power play just hasn't been what we've come to expect over the past couple of years, over the past 4 or 5 years, when they've been top 3 consistently in the league every single year. And now this, I think teams are starting to figure out their strategies. Of course, there's always the crossing pass to Draisaitl and the Bouchard bomb, but too much movement, but not enough action for the Edmonton Oilers on the power play, and that's what's leading to Zach Hyman's decrease in points.
That would make sense. That makes a lot of sense. And coming into tonight's game, I was actually kind of surprised when I was looking at the special teams. The Oilers coming to tonight were 24th in the league in power play, which is insane because, like you said, the last couple of seasons, top 3, top 5, right? And you expect that because McDavid and Draisaitl are automatic. But excuse me, what do you make of McMann's game tonight? Because they were talking on the broadcast, and it's true. A lot of people know that McMann kind of looks at Hyman as his prototype, I guess, like who he wants to play as. And obviously McMann came to play. Do you see any similarities between those players? Because I think Leaf fans are still, I think as a collective, we're still kind of looking for what Zach Hyman left behind and took with him to Edmonton. So what did you see from Bobby McMann on the Leaf side tonight?
Yeah, I think I saw a little bit of Zach Hyman and willing to get into the greasy areas there. There was something that wasn't like Zach Hyman. There was the chance, I do believe it was in the first period, it was a one-on-one with Evan Bouchard where you saw Bobby McMann with that nice little dipsy doodle on his way to Stuart Skinner. So he's got, a little bit of Zach Hyman, but with a little more flashiness, if that's even a word.
Yeah, a little more, I don't want to say skill, but Hyman's he's very, I don't know. I don't even know what the word is.
Rugged. You don't expect him to be, the skill making, the play making superstar. You expect him to get into the greasy, the tough areas, and for him to do the job well.
Yeah, and I want to bring up McMahon's stats specifically for a second since we're on McMann. This year, it hasn't been awesome. It hasn't been, right? He's already played 17 games. He's got into a lot of games, and he's been on the third line usually. And the third line I've been very critical of because there's been no identity, and Berube really likes identity. And this is a guy who's kind of struggled, but after tonight, it looks like he's found his footing. So I'm very excited to see what he does going forward. And he's kind of, I don't want to say solidified his spot, but I think it's a little bit easier to imagine him now in the top six without Pacioretty because he played so well tonight. If he continues to bring it forward, and Blake Sim, you're right, he does have 5 goals. This was not updated. Some of the websites have not updated their stats yet. I think it's 5 goals on the season. They said 5 on the broadcast, so I believe he has 5 on the season. But
And sorry, Dennis, but to cut you off, there was a blip on the scoreboard sometime during the second period where it said when Bobby McMann scores, the Leafs are 13-0-1, and tonight that moved to 14-0-1, which I thought, out of all the stats that are ludicrous, that is one of them, and that's just that's tremendous because I know McMann, I do believe he had like a similar game against the Oilers last March too, so it seems like whenever McDavid and the Oilers roll into town, Bobby McMann shows up, and that's really something you need in a player. When the superstars come into town, you need someone that finds that extra gear, and Bobby McMann, as much as I hate to say it, he does that well.
He does it really well. And I mean, you texted me off camera earlier and, you were like, why does he always do this against the Oilers? And I was like, it's so true because he had that huge game last year against the Oilers too. He had a great season or second half last year. It wasn't just against the Oilers, but obviously, they only play each other twice a year. But again, heading into this game, it was he played really well. I was not expecting that from him. And he kind of looks like a placeholder at times this season, but he played really, really well tonight. And also Matthew Nyes, with let's get into Bouchard. Matthew Nyes scored. It was Bouchard's fault. An assist from Evan Bouchard. He had an electric season last year, and they made it to the Stanley Cup final. He was electric on the power play. He was fantastic. This season, doesn't look like he can catch any breaks. There's a couple of Leafs in the same category, like Nick Robertson, a couple of guys that just can't catch any breaks, right? And he can't do that. But he's also making very weird, we'll get to that in a second, Jim. He's making very weird decisions with the puck, like throwing it up the middle there when you have McDavid open. You had a couple other options as well. Throws it straight up the middle, goes off McDavid's pants, right to Nyes, and the Leafs take the lead. It was just an odd play. So I don't know what's going on with Evan Bouchard this year.
Neither do I. It seems to be, all in his head. Of course, last year he had the swagger of a young defenseman, Norris caliber. This year, not so much, not even, in the top 20. But Evan Bouchard, yeah, he's just a question mark this year, and I'm not really too sure how to explain it because, of course, in the years prior, you can expect young defensemen to make these kinds of mistakes. It's a learning process, but this year is far too many for my liking, and not just the decision making, but just the effort on some plays. You can see that I do believe. What was the goal that made it 4-4? Was that the
3-3? You mean? I think.
Yeah, the 3-3.
3-2. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just lots of question marks regarding Evan Bouchard, and it's not just on the defensive side, but the offensive side too, especially on the power play. When it comes to his patented Bouch bomb, as Jack Michaels likes to call it on Sportsnet, it just hasn't been finding its way through this year, and nobody seems to know why.
Yeah, and it's not just the offensive game that it hasn't found it, because it would be one thing if he was like really struggling defensively, but then he had like 5, 6, 7 goals already. Then you can kind of forgive him in that way because you're like, okay, he's offensive anyway. But it's an interesting season for Evan Bouchard here. And one thing I want to run past you, the Leafs have a center problem. I'm not sure if you're aware about the Leafs lineup and how many moves that they make every day. It's getting kind of ridiculous because they're trying to keep guys around, and they're kind of, using loopholes and stuff like that in the CBA. But and we'll get to that in a second. There's a couple of things I want to get to here in the Leafs chat. But the Leafs have 5 goals from their centers so far this year. Austin Matthews has 5, and the rest of them have 0. That's a problem. And they can for some reason they just need to play Max Domi at center. I don't know what it is, but they have to play him at center, and I think he's a lot better on the wing. Matthews with 5 goals is concerning in itself, but obviously he's been injured all year. Is that concerning from your centers? Because I think you cheer for a team that both centers have over 100 points every year, like both Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Is that concerning?
Nuge has also had 100 points.
Yeah, that's right, 100-point player. Yeah, well, he spent some time on the wing as well, and we can get to Nuge in a second too. But I don't actually know what's wrong with Matthews. I have my thoughts, but it's all speculation at this point until we hear from the team. But do you think that's a problem when your centers can't score? Max Domi, hasn't got going either, and he's your second line center most nights.
Yeah, I didn't really notice Max Domi a whole lot tonight. I was going to ask you that question too. When in prior seasons you've seen him make a difference for this Leafs team, but I'm not too sure what's up with him this year. Is it trying to get adjusted to a new system like the Craig Berube system, and Matthews just decides to be Austin Matthews?
I don't know what it is, to be honest with you, because I feel like a guy like Max Domi could easily play in Craig Berube's system, right? I think like people around the league can kind of see that correlation, be like, yeah, he's that type of player, like he would fit perfectly, but he hasn't figured it out yet. I've been speculating that maybe he's injured and he's dealing with something because he took 2 maintenance days this week alone, so maybe he's dealing with something and just playing through it. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it's weird. I think you need more out of your second line center at this point. Obviously, if the lineup was completely healthy and the lines that they have been running so far this season, but it's not ideal. A lot of Leaf fans and myself have been saying it during the summer. We want to see Max Domi with Austin Matthews on his wing, because last playoffs and last season, at the end of the season, he was playing with Max Domi. He was playing with Austin Matthews and Tyler Bertuzzi, and it was a really good mix because he played Matthews. Played a lot harder and heavier, and Leaf fans like that. So it's pretty interesting. And what do you think, Matt? This is from Jim on the Leafs chat as well. Do you think that the loss of D-men via offer sheets, and I'll extend this question as well, not just to offer sheets, Holloway as well. Do you think that that had a significant impact on the team? Because I'll get to my thoughts in a second. I want to hear your thoughts. I think it did 100%. Like, I think way more than people think.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Broberg ever since day one when he was drafted in 2019. That's exactly what the Oilers needed. Just another young, rugged Swedish defenseman. Kenny Holland loved his Swedish defenseman, and after I saw him in the playoffs last year, even though it was a small sample size, I would have loved to have kept him on that salary that the Blues offered him. And with Holloway too, the Oilers decided to not keep a young, speedy forward, but they, figured, hey, who's more important than Dylan Holloway? A guy like Matthias Janmark. I think trying to prioritize the veterans like Janmark and Perry, as much as I love them, you need to build for the future while keeping like Holloway and Broberg. And the cap's going to go up. I mean,
Yeah.
the cap is going to go up, but you saw Holloway and you saw flashes of brilliance. You're like, hey, this is going to be a mainstay on the roster, but instead they kept a nearly 40-year-old Corey Perry, and again Matthias Janmark, who's killer. He's a killer defensive forward, but doesn't really offer a whole lot else.
Yeah, and I mean, when I looked at it during the summer, I thought, okay, they kind of retooled a little bit on the fly, even though they lost a couple guys, like you said, because even though the salary cap's going up, I feel like they could have made it work. But nonetheless, I thought, okay, they retooled on the fly. And then when I actually saw the team play, I was like, this is a problem, because Holloway, he's a young player who's still learning, yes, but he's a great player, and he's already played in the Stanley Cup final with you. He has that experience. Same with Broberg, right? That's another thing, and he was only just becoming a great defenseman, right? Like, he hasn't even touched the ceiling yet, and they let this guy go. And then you replace them with Ty Emberson, who I've never heard of. No disrespect, but I've never heard of him before, he went to the Oilers. And then Jeff Skinner, who to me I think is a great player and can be a great player, but he's never played in the playoffs. He's a little bit smaller, right? And we see that the Oilers have to play a little bit heavier. We've seen, what Evander Kane did to the lineup, for example, when he came. I just think it's a little bit, I don't know. I think it was detrimental to them, and I don't think that they're going to be so much worse for it, but I think they took a bit of a step back, honestly.
Yeah, I think I saw a few quotes. The Oilers this summer built for the playoffs, and we're almost in the middle of November, and I'm gonna say it right now. The playoffs aren't even a guarantee. Anything can happen. Teams can go on hot streaks. Teams can go on cold streaks. I know I might be crazy saying this, but even with Draisaitl and McDavid, but the team is a lot older. They're a lot slower. Sure, they're built for the playoffs, but again, you need the ruggedness of a guy like Dylan Holloway, who can slot anywhere up and down the lineup. You can try him on the special teams. I think he'd be great on the PK. But the Oilers, they were building for building a short term instead of the future, and that's what sort of led them to lose the identity that they had built up over the course of last year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Oilers, they're still going to be a good team, but I think they lost a little bit of their identity, and I think that was a great way to put it. A little bit, right? Because obviously McDavid is the heart and soul of this team. That'll never leave, and his work ethic, I think, rubs off on everybody. Like, when you see it, I wish Like, I think a lot of teams wish that they could have a captain like that, and obviously a player like that. Like, he's the best player in the league by far, but a guy with that mentality and continues to work the way he works. But I want to move to the Leafs again for a second. A lot of people have some interesting thoughts in the chat that I want
Yeah,
to get to, and
lots of interesting questions here from the Leafs chat.
definitely. And we have another donation from Blake Sim, and Stoley the goalie was good tonight. We're gonna get to Stolars. Don't worry. I have lots to say about Stolars. He was fantastic tonight. Actually, honestly, I think he was a difference maker in this game.
See,
There's a
yeah,
lot to
for
like.
for the thing against the Oilers, when teams play the Oilers, you don't need your goalie to be great. You just need them to be good, and that's a huge problem for the Oilers to face every single night. And you can see it's not even the big name goalies in the NHL. It's backups that are stoning the
Yep.
Oilers every single night. Like against Nashville, Scott Wedgwood decided to be prime 1998 Nagano Olympics Hasek, and it's a problem the Oilers are running into every single night. But I'll let you carry on with your thoughts.
Are you trying to say that Stolars is a backup goalie? Because I'm a pro Joseph Woll guy,
No,
but
no, I'm just saying
I
goalies of any caliber in the league, they turn it on when they play the Edmonton Oilers.
I know the Leafs have that problem too, and I saw it a little bit at times tonight, but they finally broke through, and it was with great help from Evan Bouchard with the assist on Matthew Knies' goal. But in terms of Stolars, I also want to get to our 3 stars. We're gonna do our 3 stars again tonight as well, guys. Matt has his 3 stars as well. We're gonna get to that. That hasn't changed, even though Nick popped in here for a little bit earlier. So shout out to Nick. He will be back in tomorrow's video as well. But to touch on Stolars, he was great tonight. Like, there was a point where McDavid stole the puck off of Morgan Riley behind the net, like, so easily. It was insane. And he goes to wrap it around, and Stolars poke checks him. Like, it's just the little thing. Stolars is great. He made some big saves, and he just so poised in the net. I don't feel panicked at all when he's playing goalie for the Leafs, which is such a welcome change over the last couple of years. It's insane. I love it. I don't think Oilers fans like yourself, Matt, can say the same, unfortunately, even though you have a great team in front of him, but Stuart Skinner, that is. But Matthew Knies played another great game. He's been, not every game is he the best player on the ice, but he is just steady. He is just steady, continuing to do what he does. He's been fantastic as well. Nylander with another great game, right? Like, you can't take anything away from him. Some of the defensive pairings are a little interesting. We'll talk about that on a future stream, but Stolars. But Matt, do you want to get into our 3 stars of the night?
Yes, getting to the 3 stars. Got them all selected here. I know for the Oilers, not a whole lot of dominant performances. There might even be a few that surprised me, but I'll get into the 3rd star here. For the Oilers, number 92, Vasily Podkolzin. Didn't get on the score sheet, but all night long he was a hound on the puck. Had a great pass to Brett Kulak in the first period. Obviously, goal wasn't scored on it, but he's been, trying to outperform his expectations for the Edmonton Oilers coming into the Oilers with a bit of a chip on his shoulder, after leaving the Vancouver Canucks via that trade there, but had a great game tonight, and I expect to, see him get lucky on the score sheet in one of these next few games because he deserves it wholeheartedly. Who do you have for your 3rd star, Darius?
My 3rd star, and I wanted to pair them, but I'm going to give the honorable mention to Jake McCabe. I wanted to pair these guys, but I'm going to give it to Chris Tanev because, again, he was tasked with, defending against Connor McDavid. This was the shutdown pair for the Leafs tonight, if you want to call it a shutdown pair at this point. It was Tanev and McCabe. And obviously on the penalty kill, just eating pucks. And he's been doing it all year. He just blocks shots. That's all he does. He kind of loves to do it. I don't know what's wrong with him in that way, but no, he's a great player. I love him defensively. He's made such a difference for the Leafs this year, and his transition play is insane. The Leafs going from defense to offense now is the quickest I've seen it in years. It's insane. He's such a difference maker, and he gets very little love because he is very quiet. He doesn't stand out like the offensive guys or the flashy guys like Mitch Marner, but he just gets the job done, and I love him. He does the small things very, very well, so he's going to be my 3rd star.
Okay, from my 2nd star, lots of names to go around here, but again, another surprising name. You think, oh, which one of it is going to be for McDrive? I'm going to go with Adam Henrique. Got on the score sheet tonight and was very surprising on the Oilers' PK. Of course, the Oilers going perfect on the penalty kill tonight, and Adam Henrique, a big part of why that happened too, because there's the big 5-on-3 for the Leafs, and Adam Henrique, he was on there for a portion, and an Oilers goal on the PK almost seems inevitable, or goal against on the PK almost seems inevitable, but Henrique, great game all around tonight for him.
Yeah, definitely. He got on the board too. I've been like that was a great pickup for the Oilers. Big fan of that pickup personally from the outside looking in. Yarn or not Yarn Croak, sorry, Jan Mark, very different player, has been great for the Oilers as well. So, but my second star of the night, and I'm gonna preface this by saying Stolarz maybe not on my list this time. All right. Maybe
Ooh.
not on my list this
Ooh.
time because Stolarz, he's going to be on my list a lot this season. He's been great and he already has been on my list. But I'm going to go second star, Bobby McMann. A huge game from him. He came out of nowhere, honestly. He hasn't looked like this all season yet. And he came out, this game meant something, I think, to both teams. So he came out, he played great, gets 2 goals. He was physical all night. He's exactly what they need him to be at this point in time, especially with Pacioretty out because Pacioretty's been bringing that, but it's Bobby McMann. Who is your first star, Matt? I'm very interested.
My first star, Darius from Newmarket, Ontario, number 97, the captain, with getting his, I do believe, 1,002nd NHL point tonight, Mr. Connor McDavid. He was just, again, a dog all night long. Lots of energy. Of course, he had that very questionable penalty, the holding on John Tavares. That's a different story for a different day, but even got on the score sheet tonight with a tap in on Anthony Stolarz. But Connor McDavid, whenever he rolls up to Scotiabank Arena, he always gives his best.
Yeah, no, he does. He loves playing in Toronto, and obviously Connor McDavid, noted tap-in merchant, that's for sure. 1,000 points, and definitely that's how he scores all of his goals. But no, he was again. It's such a pleasure watching that guy play, and the fact that he's only 27 years old, and we'll get to him in just a second as well. But it's a pleasure watching him play. My first star, and yes, Shane, you are correct. It is Mitch Marner. I've been giving him love this year. I've been very critical of him at the same time, but the last couple of games, he's strung together some really strong performances, and he was great again tonight. And it was so matter of fact, the overtime winner, like 2-on-1, I'm shooting this, and I love that for him because he's always looking to pass, and I feel like he passes off really good opportunities sometimes. So it was very matter of fact, gets that goal. It was great. And Mitch Marner is my first star. He's been great all over the ice in all situations so far this season. So Matt, I wanted to get into this as well. And Jim, I'm glad you brought this up because I had this written down, but kind of framed a little bit differently. But Matt, I want to get into like how the Leafs could be successful because you saw your team go to the Stanley Cup final last year and almost pull off the most historic comeback of all time in any sport, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to get into that, specifically, of course, but what the Leafs can do to get there as well, because the Leafs have been struggling to get past the first round. The Oilers have not, but obviously struggled to win the Stanley Cup, the ultimate prize. But, we'll start with that first. What was it like seeing your team in the Stanley Cup final last year? And you were at one of the games. So how was that?
I was, it was just surreal. When I was I was 6 years old the last time the Edmonton Oilers made the Stanley Cup final, and I didn't get, the full grasp of it. It was the first year after the lockout, 2005, 2006. So I thought, well, it was going to happen every year, but it didn't. But to see that happen again, when I could fully grasp it, I was like, this is surreal. And even thinking about it, like you said, I was at Game 4, and I still can't believe I was there looking at like photos of it. It was phenomenal, but for, how Austin Matthews and the rest of the team can, get past the first round. Again, they did get past the first round, but, if they did happen to play a team like Boston again, it all boils down to, not just your stars showing up, but just you need a full team effort. And that's really what it boils down to. One guy can't win a series by himself. With the Oilers, during the Cup run last year, they needed, a committee to, get past the first, second, and third round. I mean, the third round, it was pretty much all Stuart Skinner against the Dallas Stars, as Dallas was hounding the Oilers all series long.
Yeah, and that was a fun playoff run to watch, obviously, because the Leafs went out in the first round again. It was very unfortunate. So I took to liking the Oilers last year and watching the Oilers a little bit just because they have a great roster. Like, it's just fun to watch Connor McDavid play. But what do you think Austin Matthews, like, how can Austin Matthews become more like McDavid? Because I really admire McDavid and what he's been able to do with the Oilers and where he took them last year. Because it's not just on his shoulders, but a lot of it is on his shoulders. Let's not pretend like it's not. But what can like Austin Matthews and the rest of the Leafs do to get to that point? Like, what do you see from the Oilers that allowed them to get there? Because it's not just skill once you go deeper in the playoffs. Like, you got to dig in. There's all these other intangibles. What can like Austin Matthews specifically as captain now do to bring the Leafs past the first round specifically, but win Stanley Cup?
lead by example. Like, you haven't seen Austin Matthews go supernova in a playoff series before, and I think that would change this year. Going into that, again, chip on his shoulder, Austin Matthews, the Toronto media going after him, saying, well, you haven't really done anything monumental. I think after a while that starts to, like, build up on you, and eventually we will see Austin Matthews, again, turn into, like, 2018 Ovi and just ripping through the league as he goes deeper into the playoffs.
Yeah. And I mean, McDavid had a bit of that last year where the Edmonton media was calling him out earlier in the season because obviously the coach is fired and he started terribly. And then they got to the playoffs and there was a lot of question marks still because they haven't found success. And he said, okay, watch this. And he almost broke the record for most points in a single playoff season, whatever you want to call it, in a single playoffs. And obviously won the Conn Smythe in a losing effort, which has only ever been done 4 or 5 times, something like that. I don't know the exact number. Yeah, something like that. So it's crazy. It's crazy. So McDavid, I really admire his mindset too, because when you watch the Amazon documentary, you get a better feel for, how committed he is and how much of it, like, this is his life, right? He just wants to win so much. He demands the best out of everyone. And I haven't seen that. We don't know what happens behind closed doors, right? And we got a glimpse of that with McDavid, but we haven't really seen that. At least I haven't from Matthews. Not saying he's a bad captain or a bad player. I think he's fantastic and he was the right choice. But I haven't really seen that too much, but I hope that we do.
And you need the Leafs to win games in different ways. You saw that from the Oilers last year during the playoffs. There was the 1-0 win against Los Angeles where the team only had 13 shots in net. You saw the 8-1 drubbing of Florida in Game 4. I was there. So you need to find different ways to win. You can't just, find one script, if you will, and attack that. You need to find other ways for players to chip in, get confidence, because the more confidence you have in your entire roster, the deeper you go, the better chance you have. Because you saw with Florida last year, even though they were up 3-0, lost the next 3 games, but heading into Game 7, you saw them come out with that confidence, like, no, this will not happen tonight. They found their footing again, and that's what the Leafs need to do. Even when the going gets tough, just keep going through.
Yeah, and I think they haven't been able to do that. They've certainly tried, but they really falter in these big moments. It's unbelievable, and I feel like the Oilers really last year rose to those occasions every single time. Like you said, finding different ways to win games. Like there was one game specifically where I think they had 1 or 2 goals on the penalty kill, right, and they won 2-1. I think it was maybe Game 5 or something like that, and there was an empty netter. And it's like they just found a way to win. It wasn't 5-on-5. It wasn't their power play. They scored a penalty kill goal, and they won, right? They were shorthanded. They scored a goal. You find ways to win. So I'll pose another question to you, because I believe that the Oilers can obviously win with this roster. Like, they were 1 goal away, or 2 goals, I guess, from winning the Stanley Cup last year. Like, they weren't like a game or 2 away. It wasn't like a 4-0 series. It wasn't 4-1. They were 2 goals away. I'm sorry to rub that in, but it's true. They were right there. But what do you think the Leafs can win? Because Mitch Marner gets a lot of criticism come playoff time, because he's great in moments like this in the regular season, right? But come playoff time, he isn't so great, and a lot of guys aren't, right? They don't rise to the occasion. They don't rise to the physicality. Do you think that the Leafs can win a Stanley Cup with the current roster, with Mitch Marner, like the current makeup of it? Because I think that they're close. I think it's more of a mentality thing. Like, I think the skill is there, and anybody can be physical if they want to be. But I think it's more of a mentality thing, personally.
Yeah, like, your defensive core is built for the playoffs. Like, that is a defense built for the Stanley Cup playoffs. But yeah, it all boils down to your core actually showing up. Like you said, Mitch Marner, when it comes to the playoffs, he sort of turns into a ghost. But again, you just need your core players to buy in, and you got a perfect coach with that, with Craig Berube. I think he's what the team needed exactly when it gets into the middle of April and the going gets tough. That's a leader you need. No disrespect to Sheldon Keefe. I know he wasn't a soft coach by any means whatsoever, but Berube, perfect pickup for the Leafs. Again, as much as I hate to say it, I'm giving credit to the Leafs here, folks. As an Oilers fan, yes, we are civilized, but Berube, he's what the Leafs need, not just because of that 2019 St. Louis Blues run, but what you've seen with the majority of his teams that he's coached.
Yeah, no, he's been fantastic. And even with I think a lot of people forget after he won that Stanley Cup, like the Blues were a very good team still for a while until they weren't, and then they fired him, right? So he is a great coach, and I think that he can bring them there. I think Kris Knoblauch's a great coach as well. I think they're just kind of, I don't know what this is, maybe a Stanley Cup Finals appearance hangover or something, right? Like they're gonna figure it out. I think once you get into the playoffs, to the Oilers, they'll figure it out. But the one thing I will say is like because Mike is bringing up some interesting points here that Marner's the only one that is held accountable for the Leafs, and I don't know if that's 100% true, but I think when you lose in the playoffs, when you're the Leafs, the last couple of years in the first round, and it's an absolute disaster every time, even when they made the second round. When you look at the playoffs and the playoff series, and Nylander has a couple goals, and Nylander has big performances in like Game 6 where he has 2 goals, and he literally propelled the Leafs to a Game 7 last year himself and Joseph Woll. When you look back at the playoff stats and stuff like that, Marner goes away, the other 2 guys don't, but they end up losing. And I feel like that's why Marner wears it a little bit more than the other guys, because if Marner was there with them and really trying and they still lost, and it was just like a freak thing that they lost every time, I think people would be maybe not more understanding, but I don't think he would wear it as much. And I think that's why he's held accountable so much. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I think that's why. Because when you look back at the playoff series, you go, okay, Matthews had 4 goals. Nylander literally won you a game. I don't remember anything that Marner did, right? There's a lot of times like that.
Yeah, and it's also like when players don't perform in big moments, the fans like to look at the contract. It's like, we're paying you this much to
Right.
do that, and I think Marner catches a lot of flack because of said contract. When it comes to other players not making that much and they mess up, that's fine. But if Marner does something detrimental, then he is the main scapegoat. Not to bring it over to the Oilers, but like a guy like Darnell Nurse, 9.25 million, he's held under a microscope by
Yeah.
every single Oiler fan in the media. When he messes up, he's the main scapegoat for that's why everything went wrong. But it all boils down to the dollars that the players are making and the level of performance that people are holding them to.
Well, exactly. I think that's pretty much exactly it. And the guys who make the most money, they're going to be held accountable when they don't show up. If they show up and they still lose, what's wrong with the team? I think that's more of the mindset, right? Like, how do we fix the team otherwise? Because if the Leafs lose a first round series, nobody's pointing to Pontus Holmberg and being like, that's the problem, right? Like, there's just no way. So you could point at the goaltending last year and be like, that's a problem. And I feel like they fixed that a little bit, but we'll see. Things will change. It's a different mindset for the Leafs so far. But Matt, on a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you the way that the Oilers started this season so far? Because there's no firing the coach anymore. It's not last year, right? The GM's not going. He just got here, and that's a whole nother story. Maybe that's a different stream.
Oh,
But I think that's a different stream. But how nervous are you? Because from the outside looking in, I would say I'm not, right? I think that, like, if I was an Oilers fan, I wouldn't be nervous because I feel like they'll end up making the playoffs and they'll be fine. But are you nervous at all?
Like 10 being the most nervous.
The most nervous, yes.
Oh. I'm gonna be bang average. I'm gonna say 5.
All right, it could go either way.
It really can with the Oilers. You never really know. They could go on another 16-game tear, or they could go on a 16-game losing streak. You never really never know what you're gonna get with the Oilers. It is a coin flip, and that's the scary part about this team.
It is a scary. I don't know. They're just a weird team, the Oilers, but they're fun to watch. I'll tell you that. I love watching them, and I love watching McDavid play. So they're just an odd
It's
team.
stressful for me. It's good old-fashioned entertainment for you. That's the difference.
Yeah. From the outside, it's like watching it burn down. You're like, well, this is fun. This is interesting. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how Marner and the Marner Berube dynamic come playoff time, because something's got to change. So we'll see what happens. But I'm liking the Leafs game so far, and obviously I think the Oilers will start to pick it up more. Obviously they're in the win column. They lost again tonight. They got in the win column against Nashville, but I think they're going to start to pick it up. And they got a point tonight. I feel like that's something you can kind of probably should have won, right? When you look at the game, probably should have won, but they didn't. The Leafs did.
Yeah, it's the third straight game of the Oilers not deserving an overtime.
Yeah, that's right. They went to overtime last game as well against Nashville. That is right. But Matt, any final thoughts about this game and obviously the Oilers season specifically? And we'll wrap it up here shortly. And any final thoughts from the chats as well, both Oilers Digest. Thank you to everyone who tuned in on Oilers Digest as well. First stream But any final thoughts from anyone in the chat? And Matt, any final thoughts from you on the game specifically and where you hope the Oilers will go this year? And I have a sneaky suspicion that it's the Stanley Cup.
Oh man, that is quite the bomb to drop on me. But tonight, again, they showed flashes of being a complete hockey team. But when it comes to trying to sit on a lead for the majority of the third period, it's the fourth straight game of them not learning their lesson when it comes to trying to play a complete defensive game. Sure, you can't always be pedaled to the metal, but you need to find that balance. You can't go one way, and you also can't go the other. You need to find that perfect balance, and that's something Kris Knoblauch is going to have to figure out with this team exactly, and try to figure out, guys, they're not, so much not contributing. Like Jeff Skinner had a few good chances tonight, but you need to find out what identity you have exactly with this team before you can, start to even ask where they're going to go.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think the Leafs are dealing with a little bit of that now too, like solidify the identity kind of thing, and certain lines need to figure out what they are. And the defense pairings need to figure out what they are. But I think that's an interesting point. And I think that the Oilers, from the outside looking in, again, I think that they're going to figure it out. I think they'll just be fine. I think there's a little bit of worry there, and you can't really fix some of their issues via trade right now. But yeah, it should be an interesting
need a goalie.
rest.
Need a goalie.
Probably need a goalie, unless what's up with Stuart Skinner? I mean, sometimes he looks amazing, and then sometimes it's like this is not playable.
Yeah, I had a video the other day regarding, the deficiencies in Stuart Skinner's game. East-West goalie, he is ranked, I do believe it was 118th out of 118th after a certain criteria of minutes. But if you're, 2-on-1 on Stuart Skinner, there's a pretty good chance that puck is going in. And that's exactly what happened in overtime tonight with Mitch Marner, where Stuart Skinner didn't really have his mind made up on what kind of save he was going to make. Was he going to be stand-up? Was it going to be butterfly? No, he was halfway in between, and it was an awful goal for Skinner to let up. But I'm a big Stu defender, but this season he's making it very hard for me to do so.
Definitely. This season specifically, I thought he was great.
Yeah, he can kiss Team Canada goodbye. I'm just gonna say that right now.
Shane says I want to touch on that. Two things before we wrap up here. I want to touch on that as well. Shane says we'll give you Joseph Wolf for McDavid. Would you take that trade? Is that something you're interested in?
What's the GM message when he's insulted by a trade offer in NHL?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. This is trade rejected. This is insulting. Or something like that.
You've lost your one BlackBerry.
But yeah, you're down from 3 BlackBerries to 2 now. You don't have as many phones that you can. But the last thing to put you on the spot. I don't know if you have a list of the guys or anyone top of mind. But the Four Nations Cup is coming up, and specifically with Canada, since you are also a Canadian fan and cheer for a Canadian team, do you think, or who do you think, I should say, is going to be the 2 goaltenders for Team Canada? Because I have 2 guys in my head, and I hear a lot of names being thrown out there right now. Skinner, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Montembeault, we'll see. But do you have 2 guys in your mind that could make that team? Because I think it's a huge talking point, and it's coming up soon.
I'm going to go with Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill. Because Thompson has been phenomenal so far this season. And Aiden Hill, in the big moments, he has showed up. He did that with Vegas in the 2023 playoffs. As much as I hate to say it, he was a brick wall from start to finish when he came in relief of Logan Thompson. No, I do believe it was Laurent Brossoit he came in relief of in the playoffs and led the Knights to a Stanley Cup. So Thompson in Aiden Hill. Does that make me worried for Canada's goaltending situation when you look at the Americans and see Jake Ottinger, Connor Hellebuck, and not Thatcher Demko? He's gonna be hurt, but those two, especially Hellebuck and Ottinger. I mean, I am very worried. I mean, Canada, they might have to win every game 7-6.
They might, and I think they can do it, like offensively, maybe, but I don't know if that's the way you want to go. And personally, I've said it on stream before too, and this might make people go, what the heck, but I will defend it. I would go Jordan Binnington, and I would go Marc-Andre Fleury, based on the fact that they've both been pretty good this year and the experience factor. I don't want to put a guy like Sam Montembeault in net because he kind of looks good this year. And that's not a shot at the Montreal Canadiens. It's just the fact of the matter, right? And I don't want to put a guy like Aiden Hill, who's been okay and won a Stanley Cup, but obviously played on a great team, in goal. So I want to put a couple guys who have more experience behind or between the pipes for Canada. So I'm going to go with Binnington and Fleury. But we'll see. The decision's coming up in about 2 weeks, so it'll be very interesting. But Matt, I think it's about that time we wrap this up. But I just want to say something very quickly that I don't know about you, Matt, or anybody in the chats, but growing up, my favorite TV episodes of any show were the crossover episodes. So this was a lot of fun that we got the opportunity to do this. I love kind of creating and being creative with different creators in the network as well. Obviously, you on Oilers Digest doing a great job with Aiden over there too. So go check them out on Oilers Digest as well, doing some great work. And really appreciative for this opportunity as well, because Matt and I have known each other for a while. So this was a fun little opportunity for us. But I think it's that time we wrap it up.
Yeah, sure is. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to join you on stream here. The Oilers Digest folks, thank you for joining me on the stream, Leafs Digest. It's been a pleasure answering your questions tonight. I know Oiler fans might not be the person you want to see, but you know I'm the one guy you can pile on after Leafs win. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Darius.
Yeah, I'm glad that I knew one of us was going to be a punching bag tonight. I'm just glad it wasn't me tonight. But the Oilers play the Leafs again coming up pretty soon. It's on a Saturday, so I don't think this is the last time you've seen Matt on Leafs Digest, and probably not the last time you've seen me on Oilers Digest. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you everyone for tuning into the stream. This was a blast. It was a great game, two great teams, and we'll catch you all in a stream down the road at some point.